All right, so hi all, what a beautiful day it is, and we are ready to kick off this event, Demystifying Digital Nomad Visa Laws for Digital Nomads and Remote Workers, a part of the Legal 101 Hash 2. With a wonderful speaker we have, but firstly, I'm Abdullah Al Bahi, co founder of Nomad Buddy, and I shall be your host for today. So, at Nomad Buddy, we are building an ecosystem for like minded digital nomads and remote workers worldwide. We are working on a mission to create seamless travel and work experience for people who want to live their life to the fullest. So, are you excited to know how we are building this incredible ecosystem? So, stay up to date with our social media pages or channels by just Googling Nomad Buddy. That's it. So something special is coming you within a month for our global citizens. And without further ado, on behalf of our team, we warmly welcome you to this content-filled discussion full of vibrancy and excitement. So I'm 100% sure that we will get the clarity on digital nomad visas around the globe and leave our confusions behind. So let us get to know now get into the discussion and sink our minds into the depth of insight. So we organize Legal 101 with our partner YVLC, your virtual legal counsel, who works remotely to deliver affordable, high quality legal support with short turnaround time. So they are supported by a network of 20 plus highly experienced lawyers from India and globally to help improve access to legal services for businesses. So now we'll have a short look on a video about YVLC.
I hear them whispering about the places that you've been and how you don't know how to keep your business clean.
All right. So now moving on to the session. So we have a special guest today as our speaker who will share his thoughts and experience on the insights with us. So without further ado, I'm introducing Ryan here on the stage. All right. So we have Ryan here. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, bye. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing
Thanks for
great.
having me.
Hope you too. Yes, of course. So Ryan, to introduce Ryan, guys. So Ryan is the founder of your virtual legal counsel, which is YVLC, legal tech solution for startups, solopreneurs, and SMEs. So he has an extensive experience in various sectors and is a corporate IP lawyer who can help businesses with everything from drafting contracts to managing their IP. So Rand works with startups and founders across America, Africa, Dubai, and India, and even EMEA region. So he has an expressive impressive track record, having worked with startups and established corporations with global reach. So Ryan is also a founder of the Dubai Legal Professionals UAE Group, a community for lawyers and law students in UAE to network globally. So he actively mentors young lawyers and early stage startups, frequently giving talks at law schools and incubators as well. So Ryan, we are really happy to have you to this session today and looking forward to have an amazing and insightful session for our audience online. So the stage is yours.
Thanks, bye. So I'll just start by presenting my slides for the session. Let me know once you can see them.
Sure. Yeah. All right, right. Yes, we can see.
Okay, awesome. So today we're going to talk about different digital nomad visas that exist across the world. Some of them are in the EU or European region. This is going to be our agenda for today's session, which we're going to talk about five from the EU region, five from the Americas, and four different special mentions that we thought were really important and some people might find very, very interesting. So, to begin this session, we're going to have the first one, which is in European countries, is from Georgia. So the Georgia remote visa or digital nomad visa is called remotely from Georgia, and it's a 1 year visa. It takes about a couple of weeks to obtain, and there are quite a lot of benefits from that. So essentially, it's from people from 95 nations. They can essentially enter Georgia visa free and stay for up to a year, and that's a great way for them to be able to live and work out of Georgia for this 1 year period. And the interesting part about this, or what's the advantages for this, is that the individual permit allows to take your family as well. So you can bring along dependents in this visa. The country has a very, very low cost of living, which is great. And you have a bank account which you can open as well, which is not common with most digital nomad visas or residence programs as well. Now, moving to how to obtain this. Now, you need to prove a minimum of $2,000 of monthly income, which is not very high. It's a respectable amount. And post 183 days, they have a rule of 183 days, which means that you need to, if you've stayed 183 days within Georgia, then you need to essentially become tax payable, or you become tax resident there, and your income tax becomes 20%, right? So whatever you've earned whilst residing in Georgia for that year, you will have to pay 20% personal income tax. However, there's a way to cap this at 1% if you apply for the entrepreneur scheme. So if you go ahead and apply yourself for the entrepreneur scheme, then your tax will be reduced to 1% of your income, so long as it doesn't exceed $155,000. Um, the other last bit that you do need to have for this digital nomad visa is a valid health insurance, which is essentially designed for nomads. So you need to obtain that and provide proof of obtaining that as well. Now we're going to go to the next one, which is in Czech Republic. So this is called the Zivno. Yeah, there's a much longer name for this, but the abbreviated version is Zivno, and or the shortened version name is Zivno. It's a 1 year visa. It allows you to stay for that period of time, but it takes quite a long time, about 15 to 20 weeks to obtain. So it does take a lot of time to obtain that, but at the same time, it is a it does require a high amount of income in the bank, right? So you have to prove about almost $6,000 in the bank per person. This is because you can have dependents as well on your visa. And you need to pay a very negligible amount of $75 as tax per year. This is irrespective of what your income is. But you do have to have a business plan. You have to submit that business plan and establish a local entity, right? And once you open that local entity, you have to obtain a trade license. And there's a limited list of, well, not very limited, it's 80 activities, but you have to fall under this 80 activities to be able to qualify for the Zivno visa. The great part about this is there's no cost of this program besides setting up this entity. So if you don't have an entity already or are looking to set up an entity and also live and work out of the Czech Republic or parts of Europe as well, because with this visa you get to travel in the Schengen zone, right? So when you're in the Czech Republic, you're part of the Schengen area, and it's a great place to be able to have low cost of or affordable cost of living during your stay in Czech Republic. But at the same time, you don't have to stay there throughout the year. You can keep traveling within the Schengen region and go and visit multiple places in the EU region. The next is one very, very well known and popular one in Portugal. So this is called the D7 visa, the passive income visa. It's also for a year and it takes about 9 weeks to obtain, which is not too bad. It's essentially for those that are financially dependent, independent, and they're foreigners, right? And when it comes to your yearly income, it's also not very high because you only have to provide proof of close to $10,000 of your yearly income. And at the same time, if you would want your spouse or your child, then you have to have an additional 50% or 30% per spouse or dependent as well. Now, the great part about this, just like with Czech Republic, you get to travel visa free in the Schengen region. You'll be able to conduct your professional activity as an independent professional. So whether it's a software developer, a lawyer, accountant, or any sort of professional service that you can provide, you can do that and conduct this from there. And here you have an additional benefit of getting access to Portuguese health benefits. So this provides you with access to the Portuguese healthcare as well as the education system of Portugal. So if you're looking to have do a master's or do a PhD whilst working and living out of Portugal, then this is a great visa option for you to pick and choose and apply for. And the next one is a temporary stay visa. This is also in Portugal. It's again for a year and it can be renewed for up to 4 terms, right? Actually, post this 4 terms, you can then apply for citizenship in Portugal, which is a very lucrative and inexpensive way of getting the Portuguese citizenship versus spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of euros to invest in property. Here you have to prove you have an approximately 3,200 euros or dollars per month, and this is because it's 4 times the minimum wage in Portugal. You need to also prove that you have a remote job. So this could be an employment contract. This could be a job with a company that you're working with currently, and that's something that you need to provide a contract on. And the last thing is you need to also qualify all the requirements that you have as the D7 visa. Here, you do have a tax which is charged at 15% tax rate, which is slightly less than the standard Portuguese tax rate of 25% for the first 4 years of your stay. Now, moving to the next country in our list in Europe is Hungary, which calls its digital nomad visa the white card. Um, it's again for a year and it can be renewed for a maximum of another term. So essentially, you can have it for 2 years without having to apply for another fresh visa. And it takes about 4 to 5 weeks to obtain. But just like the other countries we've spoken about recently, it also allows you to travel visa free in the Schengen zone. And it has a very insignificant cost of application of $117. Now, the drawback of this one is that it does not allow you to bring your family or for your family to stay with you. So um, each one of your family members would need to essentially prove all of the criteria and meet that criteria for them to be there along with you. So The other drawback is that this is not a process that you can um, complete online. You do need to visit Hungary and do all of this in person, unless, unless then you won't be able to qualify. Um, so when it comes to the requirements to qualify for this, you have to have a prove your income of a little over $2,000 per month, and also post 183 days here, you will have to provide, you'll basically become resident there, and you'll be needed to provide social contributions and also participate in the personal income taxes that are payable. In terms of documentation, you need to prove your income for the last 6 months, provide proof of remote work, your health insurance, and as well as having a lease contract for your accommodation in Hungary. And as I mentioned, this does not allow your family to come with you. So if you do have dependents, you do have a family, then this may not be the ideal place or visa for you to take up. Now, the last one that we're talking about in Europe is Armenia, which is a beautiful country, very, very touristy location. And again, here they give you a 1 year visa, but it can be renewed for a maximum of 4 terms, which is great. And it takes around 12 to 13 weeks, which is not so great. So, whilst we're looking at this country, the benefit of it is there's no minimum income threshold. So that's something that is key for maybe people that are from low income countries or developing countries, and they're not able to provide proof of them earning thousands and thousands of dollars a month, right? The next thing is that you do need to register as either a sole proprietor or a private entrepreneur in Armenia, although you do not have to actually conduct your work or business with Armenian countries, companies, or clients, right? So you'll essentially be creating a entity for yourself to work globally, which is one of the great things that we want to do as digital nomads. Now, the advantages here are you don't have to have a minimum stay requirement, and also, if you do remain within the country for more than 183 days again, you will become tax resident in Armenia. Now, the cost of application is pretty low, it's under $300, and this permit does allow dependents. So that's great for those that have families or that have their spouses or partners that want to travel and work with them and live with them in Armenia. So now's the segment where we've completed all of the European countries. Now we're going to get into a few of the American countries that we've picked up.
Yeah. So Ryan, just I have a small thing.
Sure,
Just before moving on to the America region. So
absolutely.
I've seen like as per what you said now. So there are certain countries, like most of the countries, literally they want a health insurance, a proof of remote work. Like they have to work somewhere out of the country, or they can work remotely. And also, some of the countries are asking for income statement to show a minimum income as well, right? So at these statements, so like some of them have online processes, some of them have we have to go to those specific countries, like you said, Romania, and we have to go there, and like we have to, it is a long process, sometimes takes to like 10 weeks, 12 weeks. So based on your experience and your understanding, what country has the smoothest and easiest visa processing when it comes to the European region specifically? So if you can give some idea about that one.
Sure. I mean, it varies, right? Because um, there are certain benefits with some and certain benefits with other. Like there are certain that have short periods of time. Like in Georgia, we saw it just takes a couple of weeks, right, to get that. Essentially, if you qualify from one of these 95 nations, right, then it's super, super easy, right? So, with regards to digital nomad visas across the globe, it's a very there's no one size fits all. There's no one better over the other. There is, however, a way in which YBLC can help, which is by identifying, the criteria. Like, let's say you do want to live in the Caribbeans, right? Then it's maybe important to discuss about this, right? Where we're going to talk about living in the countries in the Caribbean islands, right? And also South America. For example, if you want to live in Europe, then the ones that we talked about, there's some that are really, really powerful countries to live in. You get access to work and travel in all of Europe. And of course, if you have family, then there are certain countries that are just a no go for you, right? But if you don't and you're a solo traveler or a single person, don't have any dependents, then essentially the world's your oyster, as I like to say.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and also as Ryan said, like the audience can reach out via VLC as well when you want the support when it comes to identifying and reaching out to the right country in the process of digital nomad visas. And I just want to add, like, since we also talked about insurance, that is something that most of the countries are requesting. So we also have our partner who is Insured Nomads. So when you guys are reaching out for insurances, of course, like you can reach out to Insured Nomads. So if we can post a link on the comment for both YBLC and Insured Nomads to when you reach out, and it's also available on our website. So please feel free to visit and have a look on that one. Of course. So thanks, Ryan. And then we'll continue. I'm so excited to see what the Americas has to offer for us.
Sure. Yeah, and I congratulations on that collaboration with Insured Nomad. I saw your post about it with Andrew. So great, great job.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing some interesting stuff in the digital nomad insurance space.
of course. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. So the first one is Curacao. Now I have a unique story with this. So this is actually one of the uh, first countries that I had to set up a company for a client when they were looking for a company to set up for gaming and crypto. So Curacao has very, very favorable laws when it comes to crypto incorporations or companies, and at the same time for gaming. A lot of the gaming and betting and gambling sort of companies are registered and use Curacao as their holding or base country. But besides all of that, Curacao does have a digital nomad visa called Home in Curacao. It takes 2 weeks to obtain, and it's for a year. Um, the nice thing about it, just like if you had to open a company there, there is no income tax there. So even your corporate tax is at zero. And the cost of the application is pretty negligible at under $300, right? The other benefit of this is that there isn't a minimum requirement for your income, but you do, however, have to have a statement of assignment or, essentially a job contract by an employer that states that you need to be working out of Curacao or that it permits you to work out of Curacao. So that's something that you need to have done and negotiated with your employer. It can just be a document that you get for the sole purpose of applying for this visa. And if not, and you're self employed or you have your own business, then please consider going there and setting up your own company. You can use YBLC to help set up this and structure it so you get it done right the first time. However, because it's a very, very offbeat island country, um, pretty much off the coast of South America, the connectivity for flights is very, very poor. You're going to have to make at least 2 to 3 stops just to get to the US. Maybe if you want to travel back home, it's going to be a much longer in terms of flight connectivities. The other drawback is it is a high cost of living place, but at the same time, it is super beautiful. It's very, very scenic. I mean, it is an island in itself, so and it has a lot of Portuguese and Dutch inspired architecture and style of living and culture. So it's a beautiful place, great for a visit. Um, I would definitely recommend this, especially if people are looking to work and live out of the Caribbeans or in the Southern American regions. When it comes to other South American countries that are more on mainland, Costa Rica is very well known. There are great benefits of working and living out of Costa Rica. It's a country that's been known for its outsourcing culture. So most of the Fortune 500 companies have their um, BPOs or their customer service bases in Costa Rica because of the low cost of setting up a company and a business and getting office space there. And at the same time, you get a lot of people that are able to speak Spanish and English, or uh, you know, very, very well. At the same time, um, they have two essentially digital nomad visas. One's called the digital nomad visa, which has a requirement of $3,000 per month, or 4,000 if you have a couple or for a family. And the other one is called the rentista, which is based on you having an income, a low income criteria of 2,500 per month over the last 2 years. Or you can also make a deposit, right, of $60,000 in a Costa Rican bank account. So go there, set it up, open your bank account, and deposit this money, and then apply for this visa, which will take about 2 weeks to obtain. Now, here are some of the benefits of um, getting this visa. It allows you to bring your dependents, right, by paying an additional charge, and it's a very low tax income rate when you're thinking about countries to live out of. So it's anywhere between 10 to 15% of your income. And so it's not a tax free jurisdiction, but it's a low tax jurisdiction. And it's got a beautiful tourist destination. So, wonderful place to work and live. And income tax is there as well, right? Now, moving on to Panama, which is they have a short term stay visa for remote workers. That's what they call it. And it's actually the shortest digital nomad visa that we've come across for 9 months, but you can renew it for another 9 months. And it takes anywhere between 5 to 6 weeks to obtain. Um, Here, you do have to have a proof of income of about $3,000 a month or $36,000 a year. And you need to be able to provide a valid working contract with a foreign company so that you show that you're essentially an independent freelancer or you're an employer employed by a remote company. The benefits of this visa is getting a tax residency after 6 months in Panama, which brings your personal income tax down to zero if you're resident there, and then your personal resident tax residency moves there as well. So that's advantageous for some people. And the cost of the program is pretty negligible at $300, and it's very respectably low cost of living. Uh, Perfect access to the U.S. if you have family there or you do business there and want to keep flying back and forth between Panama and the US, then that's a great place to think about it. However, at the same time, it does have a high crime rate because essentially it's a very small place, and there's a lot of crime when it comes to the gangs that are in between Mexico and the other neighboring cities and countries, and the probably the quality of life is not as great as you would have when it's compared to other parts of the U.S. or Canada and more developed nations. Now, moving on to Ecuador, which has a interesting remote visa. They give you for 2 years, right? And it takes only about a week to obtain, which is incredibly fast, right? This is because it's one of the most earliest or latest or recent visas to come out on the market. They have a benefit of you not having any income tax there. And at the same time, the application cost is also pretty low at $400. There's a low cost of living. The permit does allow dependents, so you can bring your family, and that's not a problem. And you have a really good, high quality lifestyle if you have been earning well and can continue your remote contracts and remote business from Ecuador, right? When it comes to this application, you have to prove 1,275 per month, which is also one of the lowest that we've seen in terms of minimum thresholds, wherever there is a minimum threshold. And the drawback is you can't generate any income locally, which for most remote workers and digital nomads is not really a problem because the majority of your business will come by international clients or your remote company that is registered somewhere else, right? However, if you do have a client that you want to serve, then either they're paying you from a company abroad, and that's how they're able to pay you, or you have a company that's outside of Ecuador that they're able to pay there. That's essentially how you would um, work around if you were to get or source any local clients from there. You do have to provide proof of accommodation in Ecuador and have your health insurance for your stay. So that's some of the criteria for the Ecuador visa. But essentially, it's because it's very new, they have great turnaround times, and at the same time, it's very relatively easy to get it so long as you qualify from these criteria. Now, the next one is Brazil. Brazil is also pretty popular in South America. It's a 1 year visa and can be renewed for a maximum of another term. And it takes anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to obtain, which is not bad. Here, you do need to prove your employment status and either prove a monthly income of 1,500 or prove that you have $18,000 in your bank account. So you can show either. It's one of the few countries that have this sort of an option where it's either a steady monthly income or you actually have a bunch of savings, right? Now, you also do need to have your health insurance here, but when it comes to the process, it's not that easy because it does have to be in person. And in terms of tax obligations for digital nomads or foreign employers, there's no real clarity at the moment, right? So that's some of the drawbacks. But when it comes to the advantages, is it's a beautiful tourist destination. You've some of the best beaches in the world in Brazil, and at the same time, you do get access to their public healthcare system, which is pretty cool because not a lot of countries allow that when you're a digital nomad or remote worker living there, essentially for a short period of time. Now, we want to take a short break between these special mentions and have Nomad Buddy just come on here and discuss some of the options that we talked about because we've already talked about 10 essentially now. And what's your feedback or questions that you may have?
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, like we have now visited a couple of countries in Europe, and now passing to America, we have completed a short visit. I think I can say in that way, because like processing these visas and these things are pretty. Sometimes it's pretty hectic, and sometimes it's smooth the processes and everything. But it depends again. So where I want to go, like, because when choosing these digital nomad visas, it's pretty interesting because some of the countries offer you like on a monthly basis, like how much you have to earn on a monthly basis, or show, okay, you have to show this much of a bank balance so that you are that is one of the eligible criteria. So I think that reason, because I think YEE they have implemented something like that, is so that you have the life there in that particular country smooth without having any issues. So just to
Exactly.
make ourselves easier, so they add those certain criteria, like, I mean, countries depending on their, the expenditure on those specific countries, things like that. So considering all the factors, so those specific countries define, okay, this much of amount you should have so that you are eligible for these visa processes. So that is to show or ensure that the digital nomads, when they are coming to those specific countries, though they have a smooth life without any barriers or any issues. So I think even there are certain things like this that are as essential things that a digital nomad needs to have when it comes to applying for a visa, specifically when it comes to digital nomad visa. But of course, even though it is essential, it is something that is to help us during our stay. I think that can add more value on this one, and I'm excited to see what are some of the special countries we have on the digital nomad visas that are being announced. And yeah, right.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka isn't one of them, but I hope soon. I can't wait for when Sri Lanka has their own
Of
digital
course.
nomad visa.
As per trusted sources, so there is a process going on. So hopefully, we
Wonderful.
are also excited. So Sri Lanka would have a digital nomad visa very soon. So we are also
Incredible.
in the state of excitement and curious to see when it is being released. Like, yeah, of course. Let's see how it goes.
Of course. Yeah. So we're going to go to the first one, which is essentially my hometown in UAE. So this allows you, it's called the remote working visa scheme, and it allows you to be there for a year. It takes about a week or so to obtain. And in terms of monthly income, is quite high, right? So it's $5,000 per month in Dubai, and it's about $3,500 in Abu Dhabi. These are two states, right? So there are two visas um, essentially applied in two states or two emirates, as they're called there locally, right? So you have to provide a proof of employment or proof of your own company, but at the same time, you need to be able to prove that you're paying yourself or your employer is paying yourself the respective amounts. Now, the benefits here are allows you to open a local bank account, enroll your children in local schools, even apply for a bank loan in the UAE, which is very lucrative because they have incredibly low interest rates there. You have a high quality of life whilst living in the UAE, as most of you all know, and at the same time, you have an enormous potential for startups and tech companies because entrepreneurship and tech is one of the things that the UAE and Dubai especially propagate and really um, put themselves behind. Right now, the interesting thing is that even though there is a corporate income tax that's recently come out there in the UAE, there is still no personal income tax. So that's great for those who are looking to work there, live there, but not have their own business, which would most likely be taxable unless they set it up in a right manner with, of course, YVLC's assistance. The great advantage of being in the UAE is super great connectivity in terms of airports. Almost 90% of the world fly through the UAE on either an Emirates or an Etihad flight. So it's super, super important if you're a digital nomad that keeps traveling and needs to be in different places for business, then the UAE and Dubai is an incredible place to be. Another one is the the Rantu visa. This is a nomad pass, essentially in Malaysia. They've also recently come out with this, maybe a few months ago now, and it's a year that you can stay there. It can be renewed for another year, and it takes about a month to get it. So it's not bad in terms of that. However, you do need to provide a proof of income of your previous year, where you've earned $24,000 roughly, and you need to work in the digital space, which for digital nomads, I don't think is going to be a problem, but never say never, right? So you do need to prove your employment. So that can be either with an actual employer or being self employed by yourself. So you need to have an entity somewhere that's paying you a salary. At the same time, the benefits and the drawbacks. Now, you have a low cost of living, but extremely poor weather conditions, right? Like it gets either really hot, really rainy, and it's difficult, right? But at the same time, it's a beautiful tourist destination. And the odd part about it is poor flight connectivity to Malaysia. But at the same time, if you wanted to travel in the in the eastern hemisphere, like into parts of Far East, then it's great, right? So few drawbacks, but a whole lot of benefits I can see with Malaysia, and that's why we have them as a special mention visa for us. The last one is with Cape Verde, right, or Cabo Verde. It's another remote visa. And here you can stay there for 6 months, which is pretty short, but it takes only 2 weeks to obtain. It's an incredibly beautiful tourist destination. You have dependents that can be with you. There's a very low cost of living and then also low crime rate. However, here the drawback is you don't get a tax residency by living there for even if you renew it and stay for more than 6 months. And also at the same time, because it's an island nation, it's got poor flight connectivity. So these are a couple of the drawbacks, but on average, it's a very low income statement requirement, where it's $1,600 per month. And if you apply as an individual, that's the minimum requirement. However, if you apply as a family, it's close to $3,000 average bank balance for the last 6 months, which is not bad in the most part. And of course, you need to have your travel and health insurance for the duration of your stay here. So that's a little bit about the Cape Verde and the special mentions that I had and wanted to bring you all. Just want to thank Nomad Buddy for setting this up and giving us the platform to talk about us and the digital nomad visas that we can help clients to support with. Over to you, Bahi, for closing
Awesome, awesome.
remarks.
Thanks, Ryan. And of course, so there's one question. So now we discuss, say, like we discuss a lot of different digital nomad visas, like different so criterias, options, everything. So I just want, I'm pretty curious. Like, so there is always someone who wants to escape the rules, right? So, like, what are the potential consequences or risks for, like, in a general perspective, for digital nomads, like, if they did not comply with any of these rules, digital nomad visa regulations, right? So, or like, are there any notable legal cases or examples, like, if you can highlight some, it would
So I
be
wouldn't say
really
legal
appreciated.
cases, but there are definitely complications and consequences for everything, right?
Yeah.
As with any type of legal non-compliance, right? There'll be consequences for that, right? So let me just give you an example. For instance, let's say you've come in on a tourist visa, you've been conducting business, and somehow, somewhere, you've been observed and you've been found that you're not on the appropriate visa that you're supposed to be on, right? They could either revoke your visa, they could either ask you to pay a fine, or they can either ask you to leave the country, right? These are, of course, relatively low or not significant, what do you call it, consequences. It could be stronger, it could be much worse, where it's either something in the sense of a large fine, a ban in that country, or it could even be you needing to serve some time in jail. It really depends on the country, the severity of the issue. um, a lot of times, if you've overstayed your visa, then sometimes the easiest thing is they'll just say, okay, pay a fine for overstaying your visa and leave, right? Um, but yeah, it really depends on what you've been doing or not been doing. And at the end of the day, the real importance is trying to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, as I like to say, and at the same time have a trusted legal partner that you can lean on for the right advice at the right time, so that you can kind of avoid and sidestep these legal requirements, and at the same time really focus on your own business, your own family, your own travel, and leave the rest to the experts that can really help you out.
Of course, of course. Because when you delegate the work and get it done through, so it's pretty easy for you to focus on what you are into, and like what you focusing on, just to get the experience and work whatever the things that we are working on. So it's of course something we can add on. So I
Exactly.
think
And
now we are moving on to the ending part of the session. So
yes,
once again, thank you very much, Ryan, for joining us, preparing all the insights for us, and presenting here for our audience. So once again, thank you very much for your time and effort
it's a
on
pleasure.
the contribution towards the digital nomad and the remote working community around the world. So with that, Nomad Buddy is also now in the full gear. So on behalf of the whole team, we thank Ryan from YVLC for joining us in sharing your valuable insights on the visa legalities on to be followed while traveling around the globe and working remotely. So, with that statement, I would like to formally conclude this event with this. So, no matter the challenge, we need to get out of our comfort zones and be the change. So, we are standing here at the shorelines of the oceans of change, and we, with a wave of excitement and uncertainty lapping to our toes. So let's all join hands in making remote work and digital nomadism much better. With that being said, I'm Abdul Al Bahi, officially signing off. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. Looking forward to the next one. Take care. See you all.
Same, same.
Bye.